All right, moving right along. We are on to day 3 of the R Advent calendar. So it says on the third day of Christmas, you get to learn how to set your working directory and check where your working directory is. Yeah, so in the instructions, it suggests that the Advent calendar folder is on your desktop. I don't like putting stuff on my desktop, but we'll talk about how to set your working directory anyhow. It gives you the code if it is on your desktop, but we're going to walk through very quickly how to run this yourself, and so you can customize it depending on wherever you've saved your folder. It also points out that the two commands we're going to use today, setwd and getwd, are functions, and functions are usually followed by parentheses. And yeah, so let's just talk about that real quick. All right, so I have not changed RStudio since the last video, so this should look familiar if you watched day 2 yesterday. And the situation right now, as I described, is that I have my Advent calendaR files in my documents under a folder called R and an Advent calendaR. So we want to set that directory. We can do that in the console, but I actually prefer doing it in the script, because normally if you're writing your code in a script, you're going to want something like this near the top. We'll talk about alternatives later as well. And so we're going to start by typing setwd and a parentheses. And RStudio will give you a little bit of help, so you can see that it wants a directory. It's very tiny, but if you have the window on full screen, you might be able to see it says that it wants a directory. And so we're going to start by just typing out, start from C, users, I don't remember my user, documents, and then I've got an R folder, and then Advent calendaR. So a couple of things are going on here, and I'm flying through it pretty quickly, but you can see that RStudio is helping me by giving me a context window. So it says, okay, under your R folder, you have several other folders, and if you just hit enter, it will automatically fill that. The other thing that's very, very handy is to use tab a lot. So in other words, I can go back to C users and I start typing the beginning of my name, JW, and now I'm just going to hit tab, and it automatically says, look, that matches this JWing folder, and now I know I want my documents, so I'm going to hit doc tab, and then hit enter, and then R, tab, enter, and so that saves you a lot of typing, and it makes sure that you don't misspell anything, because the tab will auto-complete. Okay, so we can do that. We can run that command, and that would set our working directory. To show how it works, though, we're going to enter 2 more commands. So I'm going to do a getwd, which is get working directory above, and we're going to do another get working directory below it. And then we're going to run those in order. So we're going to start with the getwd, and I'm going to go to that line and press Control-Enter to run it. And the output will show up in the console, which is at the bottom of the screen. So Control-Enter, getwd says currently my working directory is in just the documents folder. And you can also see in the history tab now that getwd has shown up. All right, let's run setwd and set it to the current directory. All right, so now we've run setwd with that directory. We see that command show up in the history, but nothing else really seemed to happen, right? But if we run getwd now, we can see that our working directory is now set to this current folder. And that's what we want. So you really always want to set your working directory pretty much all the time. Now, there's another way to do this that I'm going to talk about today. I don't know if we get into this later in the Advent calendar, because I'm working through it just like you all. If so, I guess I'll just cover it again, but I think this is my preferred way of handling working directories. In the upper right of RStudio, you'll see this little thing that says project. Right now it says project none. we're going to create a project for this advent calendar. So if we click the little down arrow and we're going to say new project, we don't need to save this workspace just yet. And in this case, we already have a folder, so I'm going to click existing directory. As a matter of fact, this is already set to that advent calendar directory, so we're going to hit open and we're going to click create project. And the RStudio window will kind of refresh. You do see that we kind of lose that script that we didn't save, but that's okay. And now in the upper right of the RStudio window, you can see that we have this advent calendaR project loaded. And in the files, now we see we're looking in that folder. So we automatically are looking in the folder that we selected for the project. And if we run git wd now, you can see that it automatically sets your working directory to that folder. And so this is just a really good way to sort of package up your work. If you wanted to switch, in other words, I was playing around with a Tidy Tuesday project, which is a project I'll talk about later. I can click load Tidy Tuesday, and it kind of just loads everything in for that project. It's going to change the working directory. We can see now it's set to this code Tidy Tuesday folder. And I can also go back to the advent calendar project just with a couple of clicks, and everything is back the way it was. And so this makes it really easy if you're switching around doing different things. Okay, so getwd and setwd are very useful commands from time to time. However, I would pretty strongly encourage you to look at using RStudio projects because I think that they just make it a little bit nicer to use. There are also some packages. I'm not going to go into them here because we haven't talked about packages yet, but there's one called the Here package, H-E-R-E, which also helps working directory management a lot and just go a lot more smoothly. Okay, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We have a lot of days left in the advent calendar, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there for today. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow.